Hi students, and in our lesson today we are talking about triplets. We're talking about three different types of triplets in this lesson. We're talking about eighth note triplets first, and then we're going to talk about quarter note triplets, and then we're going to talk about 16th note triplets. So let's get right onto it. First we're going to do eighth note triplets. So let me just draw one out and I'll tell you how to count that. Okay, here we have a very simple rhythm, and by taking this lesson or watching this lesson, I assume you know about quarter notes. If you don't know about quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, I do have a lesson called How Rhythm Works. I'll put a link in the description for you. So here we go. We're going to count this measure out. So we have a triplet first. So here's our triplet, followed by 3 quarter notes. Okay, so here's how you count the triplet. You say whatever beat number you're on, right? So obviously we're starting in a new measure. We're going to do beat number 1. Then what you do is you say triplet. You break it up into 2 syllables, triplet, but it's the last 2 in this group of 3 you can see here. So basically altogether there's 3. You're going to say 1 triplet, 1 triplet. And then it depends on what beat you're on. So if you're on beat 2, it's going to be 2 triplet. 3, it's going to be 3 triplet. And then 4, it's going to be 4 triplet. So we're going to count out the rest of this measure. You have 1 triplet, 2, 3, 4. Pretty easy, right? So let me play it out. 1 triplet, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple. Let's try another one. Okay, here we go for another rhythm. Sorry, everybody. Not cooperating. There we go. Okay, here we have another rhythm. So we have an eighth note, right? 2 eighth notes. We know that's counted as 1 and. Now, how do I count the triplet? Think about it to yourself based on what I said in the last segment. You're going to count 2, right? That's the beat we're on. Pretty simple. Then you're going to say triplet. And then you're going to have 3. And then I would subdivide this by counting 3 and 4 and right there. So you have 1 and 2 triplet, 3 and 4 and. Or a little faster, 1 and 2 triplet, 3 and 4 and. Just like that. Okay, one more example with eighth note triplets. That's a new one. Interesting. Well, that was almost what I wanted. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, how are we going to count this measure? It's going to be counted as 1 triplet, 2 triplet, and then you have the half note, right? 3, 4. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3, 4. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to talk about quarter note triplets. Quarter note triplets, one thing actually I want to mention about triplets is no matter what kind of triplet it is, whether it's eighth note triplet, quarter note triplet, or 16th note triplet, the amount of space that triplet takes up in terms of the rhythmic space is one note duration above whichever one you're on. So let me explain. So if you have an eighth note triplet, right? It's an eighth note. It's going to take up the value of whatever double an eighth note is, which is a quarter note. So it's going to take up one beat worth a quarter note. So that's how it works. So if you have a quarter note triplet, how many beats is that going to take up? Well, it's whatever one is double that. So it's actually going to take up 2 beats or worth a half note. So here's how you do it. Remembering how we counted the eighth note triplet. Hold on a sec. Okay, here we go. So here's the quarter note triplet. There we go. Okay, so here we have the quarter note triplet, right? So how are we going to do this? Keeping in mind it takes up 2 beats. So let me ask you this. If we had 2 beats of a eighth note triplet, if we had 2 beats of that, how would we count that? We would count it as 1 triplet, 2 triplet, right? Well, we're going to do that same thing, but we're going to think about it this way. So how many eighth notes in a quarter note? Well, there's 2 eighth notes, right? So when we do this 1 triplet, 2 triplet thing, let me write this out. Okay, so we have 2 beats, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, right? But now we're going to combine them into groups of 2, each of these syllables. Because remember, the 1 triplet, each of those syllables corresponds to one of the notes in the triplet. So here we go. We're going to combine these 2. And that's because now we have a quarter note instead of an eighth note. And there's 2 quarter notes per eighth note. So we got to use 2 of these. So we got 1 tri, and then the next part of the triplet will be plet 2. And then the next part will be triplet. So you have 1 triplet, 2 triplet, and that's how you count it. 1 triplet, 2 triplet. So in the value of a half note, I've counted, a triplet. 1 whoops. So they're a little tricky. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1, 2. Just like that. Let's do one more example of a quarter note triplet. Whoops. There you go. I had too many beats in that measure. So here we go. How are we going to count out this measure? Well, you have beat 1, right? Pretty easy. 2 and then how are you going to count this, right? So you're going to write out now the last 2 beats in eighth note triplets, or what you would normally say for that. So you would write 1, triplet, 2, triplet. And you would group them by 2s, right? So you have the beat 1 there, or not beat 1, but the first one of the triplet for 1, tri, and then you have plet 2 is the next note in the triplet, and then triplet is the last one. 1, triplet, 2, triplet. So this measure is going to be counted as 1, 2, and 1, triplet, 2, triplet, and there you go. Hey, Molly, glad to have you back. It's been a while. Okay. So now we're going to talk about 16th note triplets. So here we go. Sweet. Okay, so to answer this question, first we have to answer a question I asked earlier, which was how many, or basically how many beats does an eighth note triplet take up, right? Well, it took up the value of a quarter note. It takes up whatever the next note value up is. So if it's an eighth note, right, it takes up the value of whatever double that is. So that's a quarter note. If it's a quarter note triplet, remember that it took up 2 beats, like a half note. Now this is a 16th note triplet. Remember, a 16th note, at least in 4/4, gets quarter of a beat. So this is going to actually take up altogether half of a beat. So here we go. Now these are so short that they're a little bit difficult to count, but it's really not that bad. So here we go. So remember that beat 1 is going to fall under this first 16th note triplet, right? And it only takes up the first half of beat 1. We have the first half of beat 1 here. We have the second half of beat 1 there. This triplet here takes up as much space as that eighth note right there. So let's play this first beat at 2 eighth notes first. 1 and. Now, instead of just playing one note for 1, I'm going to divide it into 3. 1 and. 1 and. And you just put 3 of them in there. Bum, 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 bum. 1 and. 1 and. So 1 and. Just like that. I mean, you can still do the 1 triplet thing. The only problem is that if you go from 16th note triplets to 8th note triplets, it might get a little confusing. We're actually going to do an example like that here in a minute. But anyway, here we have so far as 1 and then obviously you have 2, 3, 4. Pretty easy. Okay, here we go. This time we're going to use a combination of a bunch of different types of triplets. Okay, hold on. 1 and 2 triplet. Here we go. So here is our rhythm, right? We have a 16th note triplet to begin with. How many beats is that 16th note triplet going to take up? It's only going to take up a half a beat. Again, like the other measure, it's going to take up the first half of beat 1. So you have 1 well, I guess you could say 1 triplet, but I would just count 1, bump, bump, like you just have 2 more of them there. So 3 of them. 1. Remember, just in the time you count 1, 3 notes. 1. Just like that, since it only takes up the first half of beat 1. And then you have actually and. 1 and 2. Then what's going to come next? Triplet. So this is going to go 1 and 2 triplet, and then 3, 4, right? 3, 4. 1 and 2 triplet, 3, 4. Just like that. Okay, hold on. Okay, so how are we going to count this measure? Well, we have a quarter note, right? That is going to take up beats 1 and. Pretty clear, right? Where's this 8th note going to fall? It's going to fall under 2, right? Then what about the 16th note triplet? What beats is that going to take up? It's going to take up, remember, it's going to take up the second half of beat 2. So you're just going to say and, but then you're going to group all 3 of these together. So in the time you count and play a note, you actually play 3 of them. And. So you have 1 and 2 and. Now, once you're done that, what beat do we get to after the triplet, the 16th note triplet? Well, we have 2 more beats to go, right? And we have a quarter note triplet, which takes up our 2 beats that we need. So perfect. So now you're going to have, remember now that you're going to count up 3 triplet, 4 triplet, as if they were 8th note triplets, but then you're going to group them by 2 for each quarter note. So you have 3 triplet, 2, oops, 4. That's how counting works. Triplet. So you have 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 triplet. The quarter note one is so hard to count. 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Let me try again. 1 and 2 and 3 triplet, 4 triplet. 1 and 2 and 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So that's how you would do that one. So that is somewhat of an advanced rhythm, but that's basically how you count 8th note triplets, 16th note triplets, and quarter note triplets. The important thing to remember is that depending on, to count them correctly, depending on what type of triplet it is, you have to know how many beats it takes up. If it's an 8th note triplet, it takes up the amount of time that whatever double an 8th note is. So that happens to be a quarter note worth 1 beat. If it's a quarter note triplet, it takes up 2 beats, double that. If it's a 16th note triplet, it only takes up the value of an 8th note, in which case, you, instead of just counting 1 and, you can just fit 3 notes in the place of counting 1 and. 1 and. So there I just played 2 sets of 16th note triplets. Okay, so that's actually it for the main part of the lesson, but I'm going to do some 16th notes because some people have requested. I think it was James had requested, so let's do a little bit of that. There we go. Okay, is this one complicated enough for you? Well, let's take a look. So we have 16th notes. So if you have not seen some of my previous lessons on 16th notes, you count them this way. You count them 1, E, and So whatever beat you're on, 1 in this case, plus E and 1 E and Now, how do you count this next one? Well, what do we have here exactly? We have a dotted 8th note connected to a 16th note there. Well, how many beats does that take up, the dotted 8th note? Well, think about it this way. So remember that the dot, what it does is it adds half of that note's value back to itself. So if a quarter note is worth half of a beat, it's half of plus half of a half, which is a quarter. So if you know how to do the conversion with fractions, you know that comes out to 3/4. Well, let me put it this way on how to conceptualize 3/4 of a beat. Well, it's right here in front of us. We have the 1E and a here, right? Well, each of these, how many beats does a 16th note worth? It's worth a quarter of a beat. So therefore, each one of these, this 1, E, and each represents a quarter of a beat. So now you do it like this. When counting this one, you're actually going to do this. You're going to use 3 of these, right? Since they were each worth a quarter of a beat, we're going to use 3/4. So how we're going to count this next beat is it's beat 2. So that's what's different about it. Remember, it's 1E and a 2E and a. We're going to count 2E and that's how much the dotted 8th note is going to take up right there. It's going to take up 2E and. Is this 16th note right here, and that ends it because, that's all we need. We only needed one more 16th, or 1/4 of a beat. This next one's pretty easy, right? You can do 3. I would even just count it as 3 and combine them both. And then how do we count this last one? What do we do? Well, it's obviously going to be beat 4 since we've already taken up, anytime you completely take up a beat, the very next thing has to be the next number beat. It just makes sense. So we had 3 and the next thing logically right here is going to be 4. That's how I figured that out. So we have 4, and that's only the first quarter beat, right? That 16th note right here only takes up a quarter beat. So we're going to have 4E and but this thing right here, this dotted 8th note, is going to take up 3 of those, remember, since we're at 3/4 of a beat. So you have 4, which is the 16th note, and then you have E and which is that last dotted 8th. So how you're going to count this, let me give it a few tries, is 1E and 2E and 3 and 4E and I actually did pretty well. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and I actually did better the first time. Let me try again. 1E and 2E and 3 and 4E and there you go. Hey, Rich, how's it going? Oh, Rich was saying hello to Molly. Hope I'm not too late. Well, Liz, we're somewhat towards I don't know, what time is it? It's 28, so you are, I'm not sure how long we're going to go on today. I feel like we've covered a lot already, but you are nearing the tail end of it, but, we'll stick around. Maybe you can get some helpful tips here from us. Okay, here we go. So does anybody have any questions about the example we just did? Any questions? And Rich, oh yeah, I saw Rich's question. Rich said something about the metronome, and I would prefer to save that for another lesson because I would really need to take an entire lesson to do that, like how to count these things using the metronome. Also, some of them, to be honest with you, I would like to practice ahead of time, just so I know it goes smoothly. Because sometimes when I haven't practiced with the metronome in a while, because admittedly it's been a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. But I want to practice it first and kind of plan out the lesson that way. But yeah, absolutely, we can talk about that. That's a great idea for a lesson. Okay, does anybody have any questions about, what about you, James? James, are you still around? Do you have any questions about the 30-second notes? What about Gregory or Rich or anybody? It's okay if you don't. I'll keep going for a little while. Just wanted to check in. And if you're just joining us, thanks for coming out tonight. We were talking about, 16th note triplets does seem tough. It's really, like I said, I would just think about it in splitting the notes up into one and, but just putting 3 notes in there. 1 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I would just practice it like that. Just practice a straight measure of 16th note triplets. So for, just count it out as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but for every one of those, you're hitting 3 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I was just starting to grasp quarter note triplets. I think the quarter note triplets are the hardest of all, to be honest with you. They are just really hard for me to count. I really have to think hard when doing that one. I think it's because the syllables are off. So you count it as 1 tri for the first one, and then it's plet 2 for the second one. That's so weird to me that starts on plet. 1 triplet, 2 triplet. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more examples here, and then, I don't know, we'll do like some questions and stuff. So here we go. Here's another example. Okay, how are we going to count out this measure? Well, we have a quarter note triplet. Remember, to count out a quarter note triplet, we're going to say, we're basically going to count it as 2 16th note triplets, right? That makes sense. Quarter note triplet takes up 2 beats, and we would need 2 16th note triplets to do that. So here we go. We say 1 tri, right? We're breaking these up into groups of 2. Plet 2, tri, plet. And then we have here, what beat is the next one? Well, we've taken up 1 triplet, 2 triplet already. So we basically, the next one, since we've taken up all the beats so far of the first 2 beats, this one's going to be 3, E, and remember that it takes up 3 16ths, or 3/4 of a beat, and then you have by its lonesome, and you have 4. So here's how you count it. You count it as 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 E, and a 4. So there you go. There were some more difficult rhythms in there for some of us who wanted to see that this evening. Plus, all of the 16ths, basically, I don't know if there, I'm sure there are, I'm sure there's a 30-second note, 30-second note triplet, but I don't know. I've never really seen it, or have I? I may have. I probably have. I just am not remembering. All right, everybody. Great. Okay, any questions from anybody? If not, we might wrap it up a little bit early. Kind of a throat thing going on anyway. Hopefully I'm not getting sick, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Okay, any questions? It's okay if you don't have any. So I'll tell you what's going on with the website in the meantime. So the website is going over a pretty major update. I mentioned that in the last live stream. So I am right now, I mean, I can kind of fix it, but right now I'm kind of holding off on making the live stream calendar. We are going to have one on Sunday, though. I can tell you at least one in advance. So we will meet on Sunday. We meet Fridays and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to have one at our usual time on Sunday, and you're always welcome to come join us. But there is usually a calendar over my website, lessonsontheweb.com/community, where you can look at the calendar. It's not posted up there yet because the website has not moved over yet completely. So and that's why Rich had that weird thing, I think. I think I know what happened, where he thought you could only pay with PayPal. But anyway, so definitely by the end of next week, I'm thinking early to mid next week, we're going to have a new website up. It's going to look very similar to one, but you will notice some differences, especially if you spend time on the current website. It's going to work a lot better. It's going to load faster, and it's going to look even better and just operate a lot better. So it's definitely going to be worth it. I'm really excited to get it up. I've taken a peek at it so far. The developer I have is working on it, and it's looking really good. So I'm really excited once that is finally finished and up there. And then we're going to have more of a regular schedule of the live stream. I'm going to be telling you, the topics we're going to be talking about in the next few. So look out for that. Really excited for this new version of the website. I mean, all the pages on the website will be there. They're just going to be updated, and they're going to look really nice. Rich says, what is your practice routine? We did talk about this a bunch. Oh, you may have missed it. Let me think about this. Practicing. I definitely did this. Let me see. Give me a second, everybody. I will be right back. I mean, I'm still here basically, but I'm looking something up for Rich. Isn't nearly as good. So after practicing a song for a few weeks, start from like whatever areas give you the most trouble. Oh, this looks like it, huh? Looks like I'm talking about it. So I'm gonna have to get this video out. I actually forgot if I made this video. This is from a live stream. Oh, late August, so it's only been a couple of weeks. But this is like one of the back burner ones I've had, because sometimes what I like to do is I like to keep a video like in queue to be made. So like if I have a week where I can't make a video for some reason or can't do the live stream, I can still put out a video. But let me put out this video for you, Rich. I can probably put it out this week, and then whatever I was going to put out this week, I can move to next week. That sounds good. Okay, here we go. Did you ever play in a band? Not music school, I mean for fun. Not really, actually. Not like a garage band or anything like that, so no. I'm not huge on gigs. Like, don't get me wrong, I like playing gigs, and I like playing recitals and concerts and stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. Never been like a big band guy. And of course I played in school, as you said. Okay, how's everybody doing? How's Molly doing? Liz, everybody else? It was great to have everybody tonight. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Excuse me. Man. The allergies, everybody. The allergies. Alrighty, everybody. Let's take a look. Let me take a look at something real quick. Do I use any other settings on my piano or just the piano tone setting? Mostly the piano tone setting. Yes, I have played around with wacky sounds. I did kind of compose for a while, but I got busy with teaching. That seems to be the end of every story I tell in here. It's like, I did do that, but then I got busy teaching. I have a bunch of stuff on here. Bunch of wacky sounds and stuff. I actually have a whole expansion on just different types of pianos. So sure, yeah, I do play around on some different stuff. Actually, I can even set it so I have different instruments in different parts of the keyboard. Split. I don't know, I'm just playing